Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow. With me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, and on TikTok. Folks, thank you very much for coming in. We have a fantastic show for you tonight. Our guest is the one and only Niall Fraser, and he's going to be telling us his thoughts on the Great British General Election, which is coming up a week tomorrow. It's almost upon us, and it could represent a sea change in British politics in several ways, many of which we will be talking about tonight. Now, you'll see behind me, I have got the Armed Forces Day flag. And the reason we are flying that this Wednesday is because Saturday coming up is Armed Forces Day. And we always like to remember that as well. And we'll be having an active weekend out on the streets as well this coming Saturday. If you want to join us, please contact us and tell us about that. Now, as I say, Niall will be coming on at 7:30. Before then, we want to talk about the SNP. And in fact, is the SNP doomed? Is it going to take an almighty thrashing in Scotland? Now, many people are saying that the Conservative Party is going to take an almighty thrashing throughout the United Kingdom itself. So will the SNP be done for in Scotland? Will the Tories be done for in the rest of the United Kingdom? That's what we're going to be thinking about. Please send in your thoughts on that matter. Please send in your greetings. Please tell us as well where you are watching from. Folks, let's say hello to some people there. Debbie was first in tonight. Good evening to Debbie. She says, only 8 days to go. We'll be glad when this election is done. Fingers crossed for many of the SNP to lose their seats. Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell us who you're all going to be voting for as well, if you want. Hello to Derek, who says hello to the family, the AFFG family. Looking forward to our street stall, says Derek. Catherine Rainey, hello everyone. Not long to go now. Not long to go. Hello to Paul from the Garden of England, otherwise known as Kent. Paul says, a vote for the Conservatives is a vote for open borders. Some people are saying that indeed. And hello to Ryan from the West Riding of Yorkshire. Folks, send in your comments, send in your questions. Tell us where you are watching from. Now, the SNP believe that if they get a majority of the seats in Scotland, then they will trigger indie ref talks. Now, have we heard that before? I think we've probably heard that somewhere before. Majority of seats would trigger indie ref talks. Well, there are 57 seats in Scotland. A majority of seats would be 29 seats. Now, currently, the SNP has 43 seats. So would it maintain enough seats and still have 29 or more? Well, our hope, obviously, as unionists, is that they have less than a majority of seats, which would be 28 or fewer. 28 or fewer would be very good from our particular perspective. How likely is that? Well, ironically, in the same edition of the National, if we turn over the page, three major polls predict winners of every UK seat. And my goodness me, the news here for the SNP is not particularly helpful. The Savanta poll had bad news for the SNP, projecting the party would win just 8 seats in Scotland. Well, that would be a come down, wouldn't it? Because in 2019, they won 48 seats. Now, in the period between 2019 and now, they've lost 5 of their MPs. 2 of them defected to Alba. 1 of them defected to the Conservatives. 1 of them became an independent. And the 5th lost a by-election after she was forced into that. That was Margaret Ferrier. So they've presently got 43 MPs. Well, to take them down to 8 would really be a catastrophe. A catastrophe. It would almost be like an existential crisis. But the SNP never really faces an existential crisis, because whenever the SNP does badly, their best friends in the Labour Party will always come up with a fantastic idea to rejuvenate the SNP. And Keir Starmer's fantastic idea is, of course, more devolution for Scotland. He wants more devolution, which essentially means more devolution delivered directly into the hands of his political opponents. And we know very well that the SNPs is masters of playing with their new powers. And if that were to happen between now and 2026, which is another saving grace for the SNP, then the SNP could be going into the 2026 Scottish election much rejuvenated from their catastrophic failure at Westminster. So we're always kind of looking, game planning, war gaming, how it would work. It does indeed look like the SNP are going to lose seats. Will they lose as many as to take them down to single digits? Probably not. Time will tell. Will they nevertheless win a majority, which would be 29 seats out of 57? Possibly. Don't discount that. Because there's no real energy for Labour. There's no real energy. To the extent that people are voting for Labour is simply for a change. Certainly here in Scotland, that's the case. And we've also, of course, got reform, and the extent to which many people are voting for reform. And if they're voting for reform, they're not voting for Labour or for the Tories. So, and there are people in Scotland voting for reform, no question about it. I was helping a colleague do some vox pops in the centre of Glasgow last weekend, and the number of people who said they were voting reform was, for me, surprising. It was surprising. I've never seen that being said by people in Scotland, that they're voting for what's essentially normally thought of as a fringe party. But there's definitely people voting for reform. And it may be that reform will win deposits in Scotland. And if it wins deposits in Scotland, then that would put them on a good track to getting regional MPs in 2026. So there's all these things at play, and fascinating stuff. Christopher says devolution has to be stopped. Dead. Not further advanced. Absolutely. And if Keir Starmer does get in, we will be advising him as much as we can that he should not go down the line of the Gordon Brown line, which is even more political power for your political opponents. That never works out well. That's just really common sense. Joyce says, be aware who you vote for. This is for Westminster. Labour shall be grim for all of the UK. They are no better than SNP in many respects. SNP are out in Westminster, get them out in Holyrood. And Anthony says, I will be voting Reform in Edinburgh. Indeed, indeed. Looking at some of the comments here on TikTok. Blueburn says, I can't understand why anyone would give their vote to these SNP charlatans. Quite right. Folks, good to see everybody coming in on TikTok and on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter. Please give us a share. Please give us a like. And on Twitter, please give us a repost, because that really helps to get our message out. Now, what John Swinney is saying is that decisions made in Scotland, votes in Scotland should be made. How does he put it? Here's how he puts it. Swinney repeatedly insists that decisions made about Scotland's future should be made by people who live in Scotland. Well, as we've always said, that's exactly what happens here all the time anyway. And next Thursday, all the people in Scotland who want to will make a decision about Scotland's future. And what's going to likely happen is there'll be far more people who are going to be voting to stay in the UK and voting for parties that want to stay in the UK. So what is John Swinney going to make of that then? As Alan Cochrane says here, it's a noble idea, but why wouldn't it apply if, as the opinion polls are suggesting, the SNP MPs at Westminster are significantly reduced? It's clear the SNP is only interested in the rule of the majority if it suits them. And the SNP are hoping that they'll be forgiven for their 17 years in power since the 3rd of May, 2007. I remember the day I was walking down Bath Street and the final seat had been delayed because of something that really needed to be looked into. I can't recall exactly what it was, but there was some problem in getting votes from an island. And it really should have been looked into again. And if necessary, that particular election done again in that particular area. But they just went with it. The SNP won the extra seat and they've been in power ever since, exploiting all the powers which Westminster has generously given them. Well, it looks like they're coming to an end of that particular holiday that they've had at our expense. But it's not just the SNP that are cruising for a bruising. It's the Conservative Party and many of their big hitters, because it looks very possible that much of their present cabinet is going to lose their seats, including potentially Rishi Sunak. According to the Daily Telegraph here, Rishi Sunak looks likely to be out. Penny Mordaunt looks likely to be out. Oliver Dowden, who's currently the Deputy Prime Minister, is likely to be out. Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, is likely to be out. Johnny Mercer, the Veterans Secretary, is likely to be out. James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, is likely to be out. I mean, this will be an absolute sweeping of the stables. That's nothing that we've really seen before. And there's three options for the Conservatives. There's that they do better than expected, which would be something like over 150 to 200 seats. That would be better than expected. And that would likely enable them to to survive as a party. There's taking a terrible defeat, which would be less than 100 seats. Could they survive with less than 100 seats? It depends where reform is. And thirdly, total wipeout, which is less than 50 seats. And some people are projecting less than 50 seats, but we'll just have to see on the day. But those are the three things that are facing the Tories at the moment, which is wipeout, major defeat, or better than expected. And everything will depend upon how many people have voted for reform and how many MPs they've managed to get. But there is a big chance that millions will have voted for reform, but they'll only have literally a handful, if that, of MPs. So where will that leave that voter? Where will that leave the people who voted and have no representation? That's going to be something as well that's going to muddy the waters. And you can see the mainstream media are already panicking about this, because the mainstream media, to a large extent, is politics. And the newspapers and the mainstream media have always liked to be in control of the narrative. But if what happens is millions and millions of people have voted for a party that the mainstream media, newspapers and television don't want, then they've got a problem on their hands. How are they going to control that? And they're already panicking. You can read it in their articles. They're already thinking of worst case scenarios. They're already talking about the rise of the hard right or the rise of the far right, which is complete baloney, really. But they're already scared about that, as if that's a realistic proposition in Britain, which is not. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And it'll also be interesting to see, of course, what reform do, because we don't know who's really behind reform and where the money lies behind reform as well. And if you want to be a mainstream political party, unfortunately, you need money in this scenario. And as we've mentioned before, 2 or 3 programs ago, if you sell out to the City of London class, then you're just going to carry on business as usual. I know people don't like Jeremy Corbyn, but the reason the system was so afraid of Jeremy Corbyn was that he was not in the pocket of the City of London class. I'm not saying he would have been good as a prime minister. I'm not saying that his policies would necessarily have worked, but the real reason they were afraid of him was because he was speaking outside of that financial class. He wasn't going to allow the Labour Party to be beholden to that financial class. So I would like to see reform, if it does do well, ensure it's not beholden to that financial class. And then you'll see that financial class totally panic. So I'd like to see that. Sounds a bit commie, to be frank, but I'm not obviously that. I'm just very much a British patriot that wants our politicians not to be in the service of big financial capital, which is definitely what the Tories are in the service of, and definitely also what Keir Starmer is in the service of. But he's also going to find that many of his supporters don't like that fact. And so that's going to cause his party to strain as well. So lots of interesting things potentially on the cards. Now, folks, we've got our man Niall Fraser coming up at 7:30. That's in 10 minutes. Please do give us a like. Please give us a share. Please give us a repost, and let's get this message out. Scotland Scorpion says, I still don't know who to vote for. Well, depends who's standing in your area. Some people find out who is in your area, and some people may want to do a tactical vote. Others may wish simply to do a principled vote, which is voting for for who comes closest. And today we got all the leaflets for all the parties standing in our area through the door as well. And that's Labour, Lib Dem, SNP, Tories, Greens, and Reform. And the only one that stood out was the Reform election leaflet, which is very much pushing the immigration issue. The immigration election, only Reform UK will freeze immigration. It needs reform. Says here, freeze non-essential immigration, stop the boats, leave the ECHR, and stop the illegal working scandal. Well, that would be not what the SNP wants to do, because the SNP wants to increase immigration. Swinney slams hostility towards migration during campaign launch. According to him, Scotland's businesses need workers. We've heard that before. Swinney added that migration is also crucial when it comes to decreasing NHS waiting times. What does he mean by that? What he means is he's saying we need immigration in order to fill vacancies in the NHS. And if we fill those vacancies, then these NHS waiting times will be decreased. However, what he doesn't tell you is that if you import more workers to serve the NHS, then that's more people coming into the country, which means that in the long term, those waiting times, those queues are literally going to get longer. And this is the thing with the we need immigration to fill vacancies idea. It's just more people that are coming in. More people need to be serviced. More people need products and such like things. And so you need even more people to service them. So it's just a constant increasing spiral, that argument. The idea that the economy and the population has to constantly grow is not a correct one. It may be one that's accepted by the economists and politicians, but it's just one theory among many. It happens to be the dominant one, but it doesn't follow, and it's not truthful at the end of the day. If what you want to do is maintain a steady population, you do not open your borders, which is what we've got at the moment. And as we've said before, last year, 1.2 million long-term immigrants came into the country. Okay, that's an absurd number of people. But for Swinney, it's not enough. For Swinney, too much, too many are never enough. Migrant channel crossings hit daily high. From the Daily Telegraph, 20th of June. A total of 882 people reached the UK more than 800 migrants crossed the channel on Tuesday, the highest daily total for 18 months. That's one daily figure. 880. 800. That's a small village. That's a small village in Scotland. In fact, that's probably a big village in Scotland. A day. And unlike villages, these are not families made up of people of all ages and sexes. These are just largely men. Last year, 29,437 arrived in the UK. Since 2018, 126,658 people have arrived after crossing the channel. That's shameful, absolutely shameful. And everybody who's voting reform is voting because they're ashamed of that figure and what has been done to this country. The government is spending on hotels for asylum seekers around 8 million a day. 8 million a day. Well, to stop it, as we've said, requires an intellectual revolution. But that has to come. That has to come because the country can't go on and survive as a country with those sorts of things happening. A country that doesn't have secure borders is not a sovereign nation. We're doing a 10-part series on our website. 10 basic principles of patriotic sovereignty, and securing the borders is most definitely one. We're working on our 10th article, the 10th and final article, which will be out on Armed Forces Day, and that is about defence. And it's quite an important article because people always talk about, oh, we need defence, but what do we need it for? We don't need a big armed forces if you're going to send our boys off to fight for foreign wars, for foreign causes, okay? But we do need a combat-ready military to defend these islands. So, what are the politics of sending our soldiers to war? What are the sovereign guidelines that we should be following? We're going to be laying that out in our article due out on Armed Forces Day. William Emery says, I've sent my postal vote in and voted for a party that I hate. Okay. However, it's to destroy a party I detest. John Swinney makes Diane Abbott look like a genius. Well, there'll be other people who have voted tactically as well, William. Christopher says, we have had successive weak governments that have done nothing to turn the tide of migration. I would vote reform in England. Gary says, low-skilled immigration lowers the working class wages across the board. That's absolutely so. Christopher says, Swinney and co need to be told that immigration is not a devolved matter. They certainly do, and we have to hope and work to ensure that Starmer does not devolve elements of the immigration system, because the SNP are calling for that. And usually what the SNP calls for, it gets from a British government. So on devolved matters. So let's hope, fingers crossed, that Starmer does not devolve certain visas to Holyrood. That would be very bad. Right, well, it's 7:30 and we've got our man Niall Fraser in the room. Folks, please say hello to Niall.
Hello, Alistair.
Hello, Niall. Good to see you. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. I know you're a busy man, and you have often been, several times you've been a Scottish Family Party candidate. Now tell us, what's the state of play with the Scottish Family Party at this election? Are you standing?
So I won't be standing in this election. I thought it was called a bit early, Alistair. You know what I mean? It came out of the blue. I remember I was up at the Chippy, and I see they've got the news on, and I was like, election? Are you serious? I was just like, oh my God, head in my hands. I was like, because I personally was not ready for this election, and it came out like a bolt for the blue. It was just way too quick for me, you know. So I won't be standing in this election, but the Scottish Family Party are represented in quite a number of seats across Scotland. Not the entirety, or not all the seats, but there are, I think, 15 or 16 seats.
Well, I think we've got some graphics. Let's put up the first one here that tells us where they are standing. Just get rid of that banner there.
So you've got Richard Lucas in Edinburgh South West, Phil Holden, Edinburgh South, Will Lanahan, Coatbridge and Bellshill, Ewan Morris, Moray West, and Nairn and Strathspey, Danny Smith in Dunfermline and Dollar, Neil Deepernarian in Edinburgh North and Leith, Don Smith in Aberdeen North, Gareth Kirk in Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweeddale. And then moving on, you've got David Richardson in East Kilbride and Straven. Great guy, David Richardson. Andrew Muir, Western Bartonshire, Stephen Welsh, and can you pronounce that?
I think it's Western Isles is the English translation, but I wouldn't want to make an effort.
Right, I'm not going to make an effort either, but I'm hoping Stephen can tell me how it is. But Maria Reid, East Wren, John MacArthur in Rutherglen, Susan Ettle in Dundee Central, Graham Crabe in Aberdeen South, and Hamish Goldie, Scotland, Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk. So we are represented in 16 seats, which is great. And I mean, the whole election, I mean, what do you do, Alistair? I see the comments. I mean, the comment about I voted for a party that I hate, which is obviously Labour. And hello to all the great comments. Thanks very much for welcoming me back. So, I mean, the comment is, you know, I voted for Labour, a party that I hate, to get rid of a party that I detest. And what a sorry state of affairs this is, Alistair, isn't it?
It's a pity that it's come to this in Scotland, the lesser of two evils, and I can understand that particular attitude. Of course, those of us who have political parties to which we are much more closely affiliated, of course, such as yourself with the Scottish Family Party, never have those concerns because we're voting very much for a program that we're invested in personally. And so in that sense, people like yourself are lucky if you've got a Scottish Family Party candidate in your particular area. You don't need to be concerned about that. My own opinion is that tactical voting can sometimes become a long-term way of looking at things, because come like 2026 is going to roll around. That's the Scottish Holyrood election, and those tactical concerns will still face us at that as well, at least on the first past the post ballot, which is the first vote. And so it becomes a way of life, a way of voting tactically. But I can certainly understand some people saying that we should get rid of the SNP, although the SNP are never going to form the government in Westminster.
That's impossible.
It's impossible for them. They can vote with the government. They can do that, and we probably expect them to do that on most of the issues, actually.
Well, I mean, just in general, this election's been it's been rather boring, isn't it, Alistair? Until sort of Farage rocked up on the scene with reform. It was so you know, it's monotonous. You've got Keir Starmer battering on about this. You've got Rishi Sunak battering on about that. But then Nigel Farage just comes out like a breath of fresh air. And this is, it's great for British politics, Nigel Farage. He's actually given people a ray of hope for once. And, you know, if you're not into the tactical voting and perhaps you are going to vote Scottish Family Party, you could vote Reform as well. You know, it's one of these things where I wouldn't begrudge any of them, anybody voting Reform at this point in time, because it does, I mean, it feels like they will reach a critical mass at one point. If not this general election, I feel that they'll maybe reach a critical mass in England, which is the focus of their campaign this time. And I believe that in 2026, they are going to make a big push for the Scottish elections as well. So...
yes, on these sorts of issues, Scotland will follow England to an extent. I mean, I was involved many years ago with the UK IP when it first started out, and the UK IP never expected to win a deposit in Scotland, and it never did win a deposit in Scotland, except it at the European election, was it in 2014 I don't want to say 14, but it could have been, they actually won a seat.
Mhm.
And that was very much as a kind of carryover from all the excitement that was happening in England. Under the proportional representation system, there were sufficient people in Scotland to give UKIP a seat, and that was very telling, and it was a massive thing, really, politically and democratically. And what I see happening in Scotland is the reform vote, which is going to be in 57 seats, in all 57 seats in Scotland. It'll be interesting just to see what that is, and if they win any deposits, which is to say 5% of the vote, or if they even come close to winning a deposit, what that will say is that they're definitely in with a fighting chance of getting candidates in on the regional list in 2026.
And the thing is with reform and the general election is you probably, if you're going to vote reform, you're going to vote reform, right? And if you're not happy with the tactical voting, then it will give reform a huge indicator as to what sort of percentages they can command come 2026, which I mean, it's great to have that, at least an opportunity to vote for someone that you don't detest. You know, I mean, this is the thing where I'm going to segue into the Lib Dems because I'm talking about detesting things because Alex Cole-Hamilton's made a massive blunder, but it's just I'm just so glad to see that reforms at least on the table here. And you're right, they're running in every single seat here in Scotland, and I mean, really, you have to do that in order to be taken seriously. You know, they have to show that they've got the funds available to pay all the deposits. They have to show that they're at least a credible force. I mean, in saying that, Scottish Family Party is only running in 16, but we are literally a grassroots party that's come up from the ground. We have no massive donors, no massive contributors, nothing like that. So we are just a people's party at this point.
Yes, and that's a very positive thing for you, because as I always imply here, major political parties need major funds, and we're not talking about £5,000 to cover 10 deposits. We're talking millions and millions of pounds, and Reform have got that, and I don't know where they've got it from. And all I can say is that I hope that they're not in hock to those people who are funding them, because that's where every British party falls down. It falls down because it has to go along. If you're getting funded by City of London interests,
of course,
you have to go along with the world economy. You can't say, well, what I think it would be good is if Britain produced its own food. There was like, no, that's where the City of London is not going to accept that. No, it's all about globalism. It's all about trade here and there. Oh, I don't think we should fight that war. Oh, no, boys in the City of London think it might be a good idea. And so you're free from that. And I hope that we can have a genuinely British, in Reform, we have a genuinely British, patriotic, sovereign party, which means it is not beholden to foreign people, foreign money, foreign interests.
And this is the key, Alistair, isn't it? That we need to govern ourselves. We can't be influenced by geopolitics. It's time for Britain to become insular and to become Britain again, and to champion British culture instead of sort of run, just we feel like we've fall off the cliff in terms of culturally. Britain, we don't have any, like, we don't export many comedies. We don't export culture the way we used to. And it's a very, very sorry state of affairs. But this is what we need to do in order to come back to British values and start just championing ourselves again and start believing in ourselves. Because this is really what we should be doing. And, I see, you alluded to the fact that there's big funders in Reform. And I was on George Galway's question show, I think a week or two ago, and he sort of gave me like a coded message in his answer and saying, well, I hope that, Nigel Farage isn't, being puppeteered in the background here, and this is my fear as well, is that there's the sort of the same shadowy government, permanent government that we've got here is somehow puppeteering Farage as well. That is a fear of mine. But at the same time, where are you going to go? We've no avenue in order to put our vote and a place to put our eggs. So really, I think it's a gamble that I feel that I'm worth. It's worth taking.
Absolutely, and you can't go through life not supporting somebody because you're suspicious or something. You just have to say, well, let's get this guy in, and then let's see where the circumstances of him being in. Let's see where that leads us, and that will open up new opportunities. That will create new events, which can help our particular view in some way or another. So yeah, I do think that's the case. William's come back to you. He says, Niall, you're spot on about my detesting the SNP. Dunfermline here has yet another SNP candidate that needs further scrutiny. I have lived here for 42 years and 33 of them were with the Royal Navy. Well, good for you.
And Dunfermline is a beautiful place in Scotland. That's where I was born. I just round the corner in Cowdenbeath, William. So I mean, Dunfermline's got a huge spot in my heart. And again, what a beautiful area that has been totally tarnished. It's went to rack and ruin, with SNP rule. We need to sort of rejuvenate, these ancient towns and cities we've got here in Scotland. And Dunfermline's one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So much in Scotland. Gary says, well said, Niall.
If we could sort of segue into, generally, it takes me to get really angry to start writing. And what's got me angry recently is Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Oh yeah,
for a number of reasons. And if you've got the clips, I was talking to the producer earlier on. So if we've got the clips of Alex Cole-Hamilton, one with Beth, just so we can show what sort of character Alex Cole-Hamilton is. If we can bring that up,
yes, let's play
that would be fantastic. But just in general, Alex Cole-Hamilton is really, I think, Scotland's worst politician for a number of reasons.
Well, let's play the video. Let's play the video first, and we'll you can comment.
While we're waiting for it to be spooled up, when they're putting the projector reels on. The thing is, with Alex Cole-Hamilton, what he said recently, and if you look back towards the debates, there was a debate show with the Scottish leaders in some church in Glasgow, and what has he said? He said that, social media companies are ruining the minds of the young.
Mm-hmm.
They're ruining them. And it's causing such a mental health crisis here in Scotland. And he's right. This is the thing. This is why he's the worst politician that Scotland has, because he's absolutely correct that social media is ruining. And it's actually, I think it's siphoning away the childhood of the youth we've got here in Scotland, social media. And they should be unilaterally banned from all schools, smartphones I'm talking about. And this is what I've called for in my conference speech just back early last year. And what's his solution to this mental health crisis with social media companies, Alistair? Well, of course, he wants to tax the social media companies. Doesn't he want to end the mental health epidemic we've got? It doesn't want to doesn't want to make inroads in destroying that and sort of freeing our youth of this sort of contagion. But what he wants to do is he wants to tax social media companies. In essence, what he's doing is he's putting a price on the minds of Scottish youth. Again, just despicable display of politicking. It really is.
Yes.
But if I can get the video spooled up of Alex Cole-Hamilton, he's doing it for Beth. If we can get that, that'd be great.
I want to thank Beth, who's compared and did that amazing speech at the start. Beth was with us in the public gallery of the Scottish Parliament throughout all of those late night sessions before Christmas. And you know, we went at the really dark hours, in the really dark times, we'd look up and see Beth and the people beside her, and it was for Beth and for you guys that we were doing it, we were fighting.
Done it for Beth, Alistair.
Yeah, a bit too much of the obsequious there, really.
And Beth is this this trans character that we've got here in Scotland that you know, takes pictures of herself brandishing knives, you know. And he's done it for Beth, you know. All this the gender reform, he's done it for her or him or what, you know, whatever you want to call Beth. But at the same time, he's so outrageous with this, and this then segues into the next video. The thing that's got me really, really angry was this betting scandal that's going around the whole general election debate. So what's happening is Rishi Sunak, there's going to be an election called in July. I'm going to call it. What happens is Coast Protection Officer ends up telling folk, they then bet, then insider Tory campaigners start betting on a known fact. In essence, totally cheating. It's Alistair, it's the same as a football player saying, bet on me to get a red card because I'm going to break somebody's legs next game. You know, bet on me to get a red. It's the exact same, if not worse, because it's more consequential when we're talking about elections and things like that. So
yes, let's play that video.
I've had a number of very small punts on a couple of races in this election, but that's only because I know and like the candidates. I think they've potentially got a good chance, but I'm also prepared to lose my money. They're all Lib Dems, but at the end of the day, this is a very different kettle of fish to what we're talking about here, and why the Gambling Commission are interested in the story in Downing Street, because these people knew of something for certain and bet against that in the bookies.
But from a moral point of view, do you have any issue with that at all? You're saying you have placed bets on Lib Dem candidates presumably winning seats in this election.
And, well, I've not broken any rules. And I think if you ask a lot of politicians...
And you don't see a moral issue with that as a politician betting on the election?
No, I think there is, after, you know, particularly given the abuse that's happened in Downing Street, I think there is a case for a review on political betting.
So here we've got Alex Cole McCritic, the betting man, you know, is our fancy jacket. I suppose he needs to put some bets on to afford these fancy jackets. I mean, again, it doesn't answer the question again. Morally, it's totally wrong. Morally wrong. And if I'm sure we'll have people in here that are familiar with how the betting market works. But if Alex Cole Hamilton walks into the bookies and puts $1,000 on a Lib Dem candidate to win, that's going to change the price of that Lib Dem candidate. That's going to shorten the price. Just say it was 5-1. If he puts $1,000 on it, might fall to 3-1, might fall to 4-1, whatever it is. But it's going to change the market. The market's dictated by how much money is weighted on either side. That's how the betting market works, and that's how the bookies always make money regardless, because they're just weighing money against each other. So in essence here, what he's done, he should not be allowed to place bets, to place political bets. I'm not call. I mean, if he wants to bet on the football, fair game, right? But he's placing political bets in which he's got key inside information, and even by saying this, Alistair, this might turn away Lib Dem voters. This, you know, the fact that it's transpired that he's betted, this might affect the market again. And which way is he bet? Is he bet for his candidates to lose or win? I don't really care, quite frankly. But he should not be able to place a bet in a sort of political forum like this. It really shouldn't. It shouldn't happen.
Yes, you would think that he would have the wherewithal to realise that even if it's not technically illegal, that it's not a very clever thing to do, really, when you are an insider in that way. It's one thing, you and I, who are not standing at this election, placing bets if you wanted to, but for him, especially as the leader of a political party as well, I mean, just that in itself should be enough to say, you know what, I'm not really going to do this. There's no law against it, but it just doesn't look right. You'd think you would have that wherewithal, you know?
At the same time, I'm wondering why he's come with this admission that he's bet. Were they going to? Is it because that it would have been found out anyway? Is it because that maybe all political parties are making bets of such in this sort of nature where they're betting on their own candidates or betting against their own candidates just to make a quick buck? Yes. And as if the guy isn't already on, £70,000 a year of our money, Alistair. He's getting paid up, triple or quadruple what every working man here in Scotland generally makes. That he still needs to make more.
Yes, exactly. It's an extremely bad look, and it's extremely wrong, really, for him to have done that. Very foolish indeed. And if he does win his bet, he should maybe donate it to the Scottish Family Party. That would be maybe appropriate. Well, maybe not. I think you'd turn that money away if you got it.
Absolutely. It's ill-gotten gains, Alistair, right?
Yeah.
And this is the way I would see it. Any money that he's made is ill-gotten gains. And the fact that he's even walked into the bookies. Imagine being Alex Cole-Hamilton and walking into the bookies with his betting slip and claiming the money. Yeah, it's crazy. And then the probably bookmakers like, hold on a minute. Were you not in this election? It's so bizarre, but again, it shows you just how corrupted almost every single facet of our politics has become. It really is. It's unbelievable. But this is Alex Cole-Hamilton again, guys, the worst politician in Scotland, or maybe he's the best one. I don't know, because he hides in plain sight, so he does.
Have you been at any of the hustings meetings that are occasionally being held here and there?
No, I mean, I've been spending time with my new son, Alistair. So this is the whole reason I didn't stand in the election in the first place, was to spend more time with the family. And it's just, it was just, 2 or 3 weeks old when the election was called. And it wasn't fair on my partner to just... You know what an election campaign's like, Alistair. It's morning to night, and it's full on.
That's right, and you're highly intense as well when you do that, and so you would be in it like 24/7, 365. And if you've just got a young child at that age, you're going to need to be there, as it were, in case of whatever. So yes, that's. I think you absolutely made the right decision on that one. And
there was someone else I wanted to talk about as well, and it's again, this one's quite hard to talk about actually, because it's literally hard to talk about, and it's this guy in South Africa. Calling for the genocide of white people. And I mean, you mentioned prior to us coming on that actually South Africa's in the Commonwealth, so we should be able to clamp down on this sort of rhetoric rather quickly. And why isn't it happening? So South Africa, this isn't new. This has been going on quite a long time, where we've had politicians being elected in South Africa and openly calling to kill Boer farmers, white people, and take their land off them. And some of the stories you get for the Boer farmers is horrendous. I remember when I went to buy a baby changing table, and the woman who was selling me it should have a South African accent. So I said, you must be from South Africa. And she said, yes, that's where I'm from. And I was asking about the white genocide and the Boer farmers. She said, that's not many people ask that, Niall. Not many people know about that, actually. But yeah, it's a horrific and it's a horrendous problem, and it's only getting worse. And if, you know, if we've got people openly calling for the genocide of white people, I mean, if I was to say the things that this guy said, but I just turn it on its head and say, you know, we want to murder all black people, their women and their babies.
Yes.
I think I would be arrested before I finished the sentence.
No, of course, and perfectly rightly so. Did we have the video of that?
If we've got the
we don't, but it's probably just as well, because it's not a very pleasant video.
No.
But what it is basically this politician in South Africa literally calling for the murder of people and naming them. And this is happening while to a Commonwealth country that Britain has very much a historical attachment to, going right back to the founding of it. And yet this is an example of what's so wrong with our politicians. Our politicians, they only care about like Ukraine, a country that has no doubt got its own issues, but that many of us had to look at a map to find, and also the Middle East as well. And these issues that really are closer to home, they may as well not exist for our British political class. Imagine if we, instead of a political class that we had that was concerned about what's happening in Ukraine or Israel or the Gaza Strip, imagine if it cared about what's happening to those countries that it has a direct physical and historical attachment to, and such as South Africa and also Zimbabwe. But our politicians don't want to go there if they even know about what's happening there. And so that says that Britain has not, for a long time now, we've not been interested in those relations, which are actually of kin in many ways, and for many people. And we've been told to look away from that. But we need to get back to focus on those sorts of things again, especially when the country down there, South Africa, is going in a very bad way. And there are things that our politicians could do. And we can put pressure on certain diplomatic points to ensure that who's ever in control of South Africa at the moment gets a grip on that and stops that. And realizes that they have to stop it because Britain's not happy with it.
We are seeing it in a differing way here in the United Kingdom, where instead of openly calling for the genocide of white people, we see it in a more malicious and malign way through our education system, with this critical race theory teachings that say that white people have got inherent privilege. That the only people that can be racist are white people. It's this doctrine combined with the fact that we're flooding migrants into a country that are non-white, and we're telling both them and us that white people are inherently evil, that everything that they've got in their countries, everything that we've built in the Britain, is just by virtue of slavery. We're tearing down statues. We're sort of we're rewriting history here, and it's purely in an anti-white slant. So this is where I did make a video about this, a few months ago, but it's re-jogged the memory, and it's sort of reinforced in me that this is a real problem. And if we don't address this rather quickly, then we're in for some scary times. And it is already scary times in South Africa.
Yes. Well, let's play that video that you did. It's I think it's about 2.5 minute video, but let's just give it a spin, and because it was you were pushing the boat out with it, and all credit to you for that. So let's go ahead and roll.
I've written a script for a movie, maybe an 8-part series on Netflix. I just wanted to run it past you all first. I think it's too far-fetched to ever be picked up, but I'll tell you the plot, and you can tell me what you think. So it all starts with a political movement in a country far, far away. And this political movement is hell-bent on genociding all white people. What an incredibly hard task that would be. Genociding a whole race of people. It would take decades, if not longer. So, undeterred with the task, this political movement starts orchestrating vast and unrelenting movements of non-white people of questionable backgrounds and alien cultures into majority white countries under the guise of asylum. The pace and sheer volume of people moving into the majority white countries makes it impossible for proper integration, and inevitably separate culture groups are formed. Crime rises, racial tensions are stoked, social services become less and less available. Then would come the implementation, the deploying of diversity quotas, filling positions of power with non-white people, promoting people based on skin tone alone, hiring people based on skin tone alone, eroding ancient Western meritocratic values, social housing prioritised for newcomers, and the indigenous are overlooked. They then start imbibing anti-white sentiments in the education systems, making sure that the next generations are brought up educated to the evils of the white race and their culture by rewriting history, saying that everything that they have in their countries, all the riches, all the wealth, the very society that whites enjoy is actually ill-gotten gains through the exclusive exploitation of non-white countries. Again, racial tensions are artificially inflamed against white people. A pressure group comes along called Black Lives Matter, requiring that people literally kneel before them. Any condemnation of the group is met with silencing and censorship. And now the game is properly afoot. They start a doctrine of cultural decolonisation, attacking and dismantling everything attached to white culture. Political pressure groups are funded and formed to sow further discontent. Statues are branded racist and torn down. Churches are burned to the ground. Priceless artwork and buildings that took decades to create are gone in minutes. The people that they put in positions of power now start passing speech laws, specifically targeting white people. And here we are. Or rather, that's all the script that I've written for the film. So you tell me, is that too far-fetched, or what?
Oh, it's making me sweat watching that there, Alistair. Oh.
Well, do you know what? You've got a very good way of putting it all together in a short amount of time, covering all the bases in a very logical way. So that's a really good video. Did you post that on your TikTok?
I haven't put it on TikTok. I don't think. I just put it on my Twitter. But then again, it went viral almost instantly. Even Andrew Tate commenting on it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and he said, I said it's a Netflix show. He said something like, "Well, it's a shame. It's exactly like real life, basically."
Yeah.
But if you want to sort of entertain me further, Alistair, I've got someone else to showcase to your viewers. So my most recent video is, again, the way I like to see it is, like, tactical voting is most likely probably the way to go in order to get the SNP out, right? But another way, I've always said that, yes, that's likely the route out of this SNP-dominated political culture here we've got in Scotland. But the way to really do it is to drive the reputation of the SNP into the ground, time and time again, until they've got no voters left. And then we don't need to worry about tactical voting at all. Then we could actually legitimately vote for parties that interest us, that align with your values and your sensibilities. So I don't know if you want to run on a bit longer there, Alistair, but if you could close out the sort of the show with my latest one, which is
absolutely. Let's run that video right now. Yeah.
So it's Bram's Waltz. That's brilliant.
That's a good one. That's a potted history of the SNP's failures, really, since they took power in May 2007. And it may well be that is the last waltz for them. We can only
hope, yeah.
Hope. Exactly. Niall, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, as always, and wishing you the very best and your young family the very best as well. You are on X, formerly known as Twitter, at x.com/Niall Fraser 8, and that's spelt NIALLFRASER numeral 8. Good. Fantastic. Any last words?
No, just thanks for having me, Alistair. It's been an absolute pleasure being on your show. And what I would like to promote just very briefly is the fact that on election night, I'll be doing an alternative broadcast. I see that ITV are having Nicola Sturgeon on their show for the debate. So if you can't bear to look at Nicola Sturgeon, then you can tune in to my alternative broadcast. And of course, Alistair, you are invited on to give us your opinion and to watch the results come in, because we might be having a wee sip of champagne, Alistair. Who knows? If they get sub 10 seats, I think I might just order in a carry-out.
I'm looking forward to that. That will be on your Twitter platform.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'll be one of your, what do they call it? Pundits.
Yes, please.
Yes. I'll be the I'll have a lot to say, and no doubt there'll be other pundits as well making an entrance, and it could be a very good alternative. An alternative, a sort of unionist. We need to get a name for that. Then we'll have for the unionist night in or whatever, and we can have, like, people can comment as well. Have you got a system whereby people can send in their comments?
Oh, of course. It'll be very similar to this. If I can take a page at your book, Alistair, you run an absolute great show here. So if I could emulate what you're doing here, that would be fantastic. It'd be if I come anywhere close to what this is, I'm sure it'll be a great podcast, and I'm sure we can get not just yourself, but tactical voting guide creator David Griffiths has already said he'd be available. A lot of other people are expressed interest in coming on the show, and we might even get people who are just people commenting that if they want to come up and give us their take, just come ahead. So it'll be a no holds barred like election night. It'll be fantastic.
That sounds great. That's something to look forward to next Thursday. And okay, Niall, thanks very much for coming on, and we'll be speaking to you next Thursday night.
Okay, fantastic. All the best, and thanks to all your great viewers.
Thank you. Fantastic. That's Niall. He's having an election program next Thursday, the 4th of July, on election night. I'll be on it, other people will be on it, and we'll be watching the results coming in, and we'll be commenting, and that's definitely something for the AFFG family to tune into, and that'll be on Niall's X account. Good. Now, folks, running along the bottom is our crowdfunder.co.uk/union 2024 banner, and that's our crowdfunder. We're now 2 weeks into our 4-week crowdfunder, and let's put up the QR code for this. And what you can simply do is point your camera on your mobile phone at our QR code, and lo and behold, that will take you to the page. And there we are, QR code. So that's the QR code for the page. That's also the QR code right there. And the address, and we'll put the banner up, is simply this one, crowdfunder.co.uk union 2024. And last time we looked, we're at 23% of what we need. And we thank everybody who's given money so far. You're absolutely stars, every one of you. And if you are able to chip in to enable us to get through the next 5 months of the year up until the end of the year, then please consider whatever it is that you can afford. And also notice all the rewards that we've got on that page as well. And you don't have to claim a reward, but you may wish to claim a reward for a certain amount of donation. You might also want to buy our wee book, which we published at the end of last year in order for this general election year. And there's a lot of stuff in here about the general election and about what Labour especially need to do after the general election, if indeed they win it. But that's still up in the air at the moment, isn't it, folks? Because as we've been saying tonight, there's definitely a lot of different parties that you can vote for. Let's see, where are we? There we go. Search Amazon for One Big Country, a big book for the Union, Volume 1. Just type in One Big Country to amazon.co.uk and you'll get straight to it. It's only $9.99, and that includes postage as well if you're on Amazon Prime. Fantastic. Thank you. And don't forget our shop, of course, where we have lots of smaller items such as our wee book for the Union. And we always push our merchandise because it's what keeps us going, along with the crowdfunder, along with our monthly donors as well. So grateful to all you guys, and we're able to bring you fantastic commentary and fantastic activism as well. For example, last Saturday, we were out in Stirling and we filmed the All Under One Banner March. Now, they are in Stirling every year having their marches. They said there was 1,500 of them. However, if you go to our YouTube site and look at our film of them, you will see that there were 290 of them. And they took less than 4 minutes to pass our counting point. There was not the 1,500 that they claimed. Surprise, surprise. So all these sorts of things have expenses, and anything that you guys can do to help us is much appreciated, folks. It's been a blast. Thank you very much for all the comments. Thank you for all the viewers as well. It just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next week.